Hello, how are you? I really hope everything is going well over there. My name is Joel, and my partner, my love, is called Todd. When I arrived here, I had made up my mind. This would be the last page of our story. I had prepared my heart to say goodbye. But on the way, something beautiful happened to us, simple and enormous at the same time, and I couldn't keep it to myself. So I came back to share it with you. Don't forget the full version in the comments, along with the link to the previous parts of this story. It had been 4 years since we bought our house. Over time, everything found its rightful place, furniture, pictures, our routine, and yet I still found myself thinking that it seemed like a well-lived dream. Everything was simple and perfect in our own way. The house came alive on weekends. It was livelier when my daughter came over or when Todd's son stopped by. There was laughter on the porch, footsteps running down the hall, voices crossing in the kitchen, the lake reflecting the late afternoon as if it were a stage for our little family. And when the house calmed down again, I looked at him and knew. Our choice had been the right one, but like every relationship, ours had its ups and downs. One day, we went to the supermarket to do some shopping. We were walking through the aisles with our list in hand, choosing brands and prices, when, for a moment, I stepped away from Todd to pick up an item. I returned in a few seconds, and when I found him again, I saw the scene. He was hugging a guy. It was like a shock inside. Something bad awakened in me, a jealousy I had never known before. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding, and recognized him. It was Mark, that longtime friend he had mentioned. When he saw me, Todd moved away from the embrace a little. I tried to hide it, but my face gave me away immediately. He said, in a light tone, "Look who I found here, love, Mark." Mark turned to me, extended his hand, and said cordially, "Hello, Joel. How are you?" For a second, I almost didn't extend my hand, but even without meaning to, I gave him mine. He shook it firmly and added, "Congratulations to you both. I'm glad you're together." I swallowed hard and replied with a short "thank you." I turned to Todd. "Honey, shall we go? We can't stay long." "See you later, Mark. Good to see you here," said Todd. We headed to the cashier, paid in silence, and went straight to the truck. I remained silent in the truck, my hands firmly on the steering wheel, still burning with anger from that scene. I knew it was no big deal, but jealousy hit me hard, in a place I didn't even know still hurt. Todd noticed. He always does. He put his hand on my thigh and asked quietly, without anger in his voice, "Honey, what was that about?" I kept my eyes on the road. "What do you mean? I don't understand what you're talking about." He took a deep breath, patiently. "You barely spoke to Mark. What happened?" I clenched my jaw. "Do you really want to know?" I waited a second, then let it out all at once, without beating around the bush. "I didn't like seeing you hugging him. I felt jealous. Very jealous. This longtime friend thing doesn't make sense to me." Didn't longtime friend thing. And another thing, how does he know about us? Did he already know you were into other men? The sound of the engine seemed to grow louder in the silence that followed. I kept driving, breathing through my mouth so I wouldn't burst, waiting for his answer, my heart pounding, as if every curve in the road also demanded a curve in both of us. He took a deep breath before speaking, his eyes still searching for mine in the reflection of the glass. "Honey, I already told you, we're longtime friends. I don't need to lie to you. I'm with you. You're my partner, my love. Why so much mistrust? Why so much jealousy?" My hand gripped the steering wheel. He continued, calmly, without raising his voice. "At the market, he asked how my marriage was going. I said, 'Mark, I got divorced today. I'm living with a man.' And I told him it was you. He said he had seen you with me at the restaurant. He was surprised because he never realized I was gay. Then he said, 'I'm happy for you, my friend,' and hugged me. That's when you showed up." I was silent for a second that seemed like a long time. The constant sound of the engine, his steady breathing beside me, and me there with my chest tight, replaying the scene, the hug, the shock, my raw reaction. The jealousy didn't go away, but something loosened inside. There was no stumbling in his voice, no gap in the story, just transparency. I exhaled slowly, like someone opening a zipper. It still hurt, but it hurt less. The whole way home was silent. I was still processing that scene at the market. The images came and went, like a misaligned movie. We parked, We took the things out of the truck without exchanging more than 2 or 3, "Take this, and be careful." He helped me put them in the refrigerator, doors opening and closing, the dry sound of packaging on glass, and, without saying anything, went to the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen and started to prepare dinner. The water heated up, the smell of garlic rose, the knife marking the cutting board at a pace that tried to calm my chest. He didn't come back to help. When everything was ready and the silence began to weigh more than the steam from the pot, I went to the bedroom. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders slightly hunched, hands on his chin. I sat down next to him slowly and spoke softly. "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that." He looked at me. His eyes were red, his voice faltering only at the beginning. "Joel, I was really upset with you. I love you. I don't hide anything from you. Look how long we've been together. Look what we've built. And you have a jealousy crisis because of a friend I haven't seen or spoken to in years." He took a deep breath, held his leg as if trying to anchor himself, and continued. "Tell me what's going on. Is there something I did that made you feel this way? I want to understand what happened." I stood there, feeling the bed sink a little under the weight of both of us and our words. Dinner was getting cold in the kitchen. Here, what was boiling was what we needed to say. When he said Joel, I immediately realized how upset he was. He only calls me that, curtly, when something really doesn't please him. I took a deep breath, my throat tight. "Honey, I know what I'm about to say doesn't justify what happened," I began, my voice cracking. "But I've never loved anyone the way I love you. You've given my life new meaning. I'm afraid of losing you. I can't even imagine you with someone else. Forgive me. I couldn't help myself." The sentence was barely finished when a tear escaped. He looked at me for a second that seemed like an eternity, reached out carefully and wiped the tear from my face, his touch as light as someone calmly putting out a fire. "Honey, stop it," he said softly. "I love you and you'll never lose me. And you don't have to imagine me with someone else, because it's not going to happen. Ever." He paused briefly, his eyes fixed on mine. "I promise you that." I stood still, as if that promise had found a precise place inside me. Dinner was waiting in the kitchen. The world outside was silent, and there, in the bedroom, only the sound of our breathing as our chests slowed down. He kissed me. First, a calm touch, as if asking for forgiveness with his mouth. In a few seconds, the kiss heated up. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I felt his hand move up my neck, the other firm on my waist, and passion took over us. That night, we gave ourselves to each other calmly, affectionately, and with complicity. It was our moment of love and presence, in which we let our hearts speak louder than any insecurity. Then we took a shower together. The warm water fell on us, washing away the tension of the day and sealing the peace of that moment. We stood face to face, in comfortable silence, exchanging simple caresses and soft kisses, without haste. We left the bathroom laughing softly, dried ourselves calmly, and got dressed. I looked at him, my hair still damp, and joked, "Honey, we'll have to reheat dinner. It must have gotten cold by now." He smiled and replied, "No problem, honey." Lighters of the letter, we went to the kitchen. The sound of the microwave filled the room as we exchanged knowing glances. We sat down and had dinner, sharing smiles and little touches of the hand that said more than words. The food may have been only lukewarm, but what mattered was the warmth between us. As he talked about simple things, I watched him tenderly. I thought silently that I needed to take better care of my jealousy so as not to hurt the one I love. I took a deep breath and kept that as a reminder. Love should be light. He noticed my smile and asked, "What is it, love?" "Is it? I love you so much," I replied softly. He smiled back. "Silly. I love you too." We continued our meal with glances and quiet laughter, as if every simple gesture, the sound of cutlery, the warm food, the soft light in the kitchen, were proof that we were where we should be, together. After we finished our meal, we were in no hurry to leave the table. We stayed for a few minutes, just holding hands, enjoying the comfortable silence. Then he got up, took me by the hand, and we went to the living room together. We threw ourselves on the sofa, side by side, still a little limp after so much intensity. He rested his head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arms around his waist, pulling him closer. We stayed like that, listening to the distant sounds of the night outside, until he broke the silence. Honey, have you ever thought about what you want our future to be like? I mean, in a few years? The question took me by surprise, but at the same time it warmed my heart. I took a deep breath and answered without thinking too much. I only see myself by your side. It doesn't matter if it's in a small house, a messy apartment, or traveling the world. The important thing is to be with you. He lifted his face and looked me in the eyes, serious, but with that sparkle of tenderness that I knew so well. That's what I want too. But for that, we need to take care of each other, trust each other. I kissed his forehead and smiled. Then let's take care of it, of our love, of ourselves, of everything we're building. We lay there, exchanging dreams and quiet promises, like people writing a future out loud, but already feeling that it is beginning to exist at that very moment. The conversation slowed down, our voices mixed with yawns and low laughter. The sofa already seemed too small for so much tenderness, and he, laughing lazily, got up and pulled me by the hand. Let's go to bed, love. We won't be able to sleep properly here. We walked to the bedroom together, still embracing. We lay side by side, the soft light illuminating just enough for me to see his tired smile. He settled his head on my chest, and I wrapped my arms around his waist, letting my body relax with the warmth of his. Good night, love, he murmured, already half asleep. I kissed his hair, took a deep breath, and replied softly, Good night, my love. In a few minutes, sleep overtook us, and we fell asleep in each other's arms, as if the whole world fit there, in that bed, in the silence of our love. The soft morning light came in through the cracks in the curtains, slowly illuminating the room. I opened my eyes, still sleepy, and the first thing I saw was him, sleeping peacefully beside me. His face was serene, his lips slightly parted, his hair messy, a simple sight, but one that filled my heart with tenderness. I spent a few seconds just watching, remembering the night before, how much that man made me feel complete. I touched his arm lightly, and he moved slowly, opening his sleepy eyes. Good morning, love, he murmured, his voice hoarse, still half lost in sleep. I smiled and kissed his forehead. Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well? He nodded, curling up closer in my embrace. We stayed like that, in no hurry to get up, listening only to the sound of the street outside beginning to come to life. After a few minutes, he laughed softly and said, How wonderful to wake up like this, by your side. I stroked his hair and replied sincerely, Me too, it's all I need. Me too. And in that bed, between lazy kisses and gentle caresses, I realized that there was no rush for anything. The day could wait, the two of us were enough. The days passed quietly, filled with routines and affection, until finally the weekend arrived when I decided to surprise Todd. I wanted to mark that moment in a special way, to show him that my feelings for him went far beyond what words could express. The day before, I stopped by the restaurant I had chosen and asked to speak to the manager. I told him my plan, my heart racing like a teenager's. I handed him a bouquet of red roses, fresh, intense, laden with meaning, and a small case with the wedding rings I had chosen so carefully. I asked him to come to our table during dinner and hand them to us, as if it were part of the service, so that Todd wouldn't suspect anything. I want to surprise my partner, I said, trying to contain my nervousness. The manager smiled knowingly and assured me he would do exactly as I asked. I left feeling light, with anxiety burning in my chest, already imagining Todd's expression when the moment came. Saturday arrived, and with it, that good kind of anxiety that wouldn't let me sit still. I spent the morning thinking about every detail, the outfit I was going to wear, the tone of the words I wanted to say, even the wine that would go well with his favorite dish. It was more than just dinner, it was the night I wanted to mark forever in our history. When it was almost time, I got ready carefully. I put on the shirt he always complimented me on, fixed my hair, and sprayed on a subtle perfume that I knew drove him crazy. In the mirror, I smiled nervously. It felt like the first time I was going out with him. Todd arrived in the living room ready to go, and my breath almost failed me. He was wearing a blue shirt that made his eyes stand out even more, and he had that open smile that melted me. Wow, you look gorgeous, love, I said, unable to hide my excitement. He laughed, adjusted his collar, and replied, Look who's talking. It's like we're going on a first date. We got in the car and headed to the restaurant. During the ride, we talked about simple things, but inside my heart was beating so loud that it seemed like he could hear it. All I could think about was the moment when the manager would appear with the roses and the little box. When we arrived, the atmosphere was perfect. Soft lighting, discreet music, beautifully set tables. We sat down, ordered wine and dishes that we knew we would both enjoy. Dinner went smoothly, full of laughter and knowing glances. Only I knew what was about to happen, and with each passing minute, the anticipation grew. Later, as dinner continued with smiles and knowing glances, the manager discreetly passed by our table. He greeted us and, with an almost imperceptible gesture, asked permission to bring the flowers and rings. I responded with a discreet nod, and he understood. He walked around the restaurant and, a few minutes later, reappeared with a bouquet of red roses in one hand and the small box of rings in the other. The moment he approached, the atmosphere changed. It was as if everyone in the restaurant knew what was about to happen. The buzz ceased, and silence took over, creating a palpable sense of anticipation. The manager leaned over and handed me the flowers and the box. I looked at Todd, my heart racing, and handed him the bouquet, saying, "Honey, when God puts special people in our lives, we need to have the wisdom to value, respect, and love them until the end of our days. God put you in my life, and I promise to love you until the end." He held the bouquet, his eyes already teary, overcome with emotion. At that moment, I took a deep breath, stood up, and knelt before him. Todd's eyes widened and he said, his voice trembling, "Honey, what are you doing?" I smiled, opened the box, revealing the wedding rings glistening in the candlelight, and said firmly, my voice choked with emotion, "My love, will you marry me?" He brought his hands to his face, began to cry, and without thinking twice, knelt down in front of me. He put the bouquet on the table, held my hands together with the box, and, crying, said, "My love, you are beautiful. Of course I want to marry you." We hugged there, kissing each other's hands, while the entire restaurant burst into applause. Some people said aloud, "My God, how beautiful." Others clapped and smiled, sharing in our happiness. We stood up, still holding hands, and I raised my glass, looking around at everyone who had witnessed it. My voice came out steady, even though my heart was racing. "Everyone, I want to thank you all for being part of this very special moment, for being witnesses to this love. A toast to love." The people around us smiled, raised their glasses with us, and toasted, the sound of crystal glasses clinking filling the room like music. After that, we sat back down, still overcome with emotion. The manager approached us to congratulate us and said, "This dinner is on me. Say yes." We thanked him emotionally, and he added in a humorous tone, "But I'll be expecting an invitation to the wedding, okay?" We laughed together and replied, "You're more than welcome." When he walked away, Todd looked at me with shining eyes, still holding the bouquet tightly, and said, "Honey, I want to put this ring on your finger right now." I smiled, caressed his hand, and replied, "Don't worry, my love. Soon we'll be officially married." He smiled, wiped away his tears, and kissed me, while the entire restaurant returned to its normal rhythm. But for us, the world seemed to have changed forever. After the toast and all the applause, dinner continued more lightly, with smiles that never left our faces. Every time I looked at Todd, I saw that new sparkle in his eyes, as if we were starting a new life right there. We finished our meal slowly, enjoying every moment, and when we finally left the restaurant, there were still people greeting us and wishing us well. Outside, the cool night air enveloped us, and Todd walked hand in hand with me, hugging the roses as if he were carrying the greatest treasure in the world. In the car, the silence was not due to a lack of words, but to a feeling of fulfillment. He rested his head on my shoulder and sighed, letting out, "That was the most beautiful night of my life." I squeezed his hand on the gear shift and replied, my voice breaking, "Mine too, my love." When we got home, we put our fancy clothes aside and lay there, just the two of us, embracing each other. The wedding rings were still in the box on the table by the headboard, but what mattered was the promise that was already engraved in each of our hearts. We fell asleep like that, enveloped by the scent of roses, each other's warmth, and the certainty that from then on we were more than lovers. We were life partners. In the days that followed, we began to talk more seriously about marriage. We soon realized that it would be difficult to handle so many details on our own, so we hired an experienced organizer, who quickly proved to be attentive and dedicated. She listened patiently to our every wish, wrote everything down, and turned our ideas into concrete plans. She took care of choosing the menu, recommended reliable suppliers, showed us decoration options. But one decision had already been made from the beginning. The ceremony would take place in front of the lake, at our house. We wanted it to be intimate, authentic, in a place that already held so many memories for us. The reflection of the water, the surrounding trees, the sunset spreading across the horizon, we knew that this setting was the most perfect we could have. The organizer loved the idea and began to plan everything around it. White chairs arranged on the grass, an arch decorated with natural flowers, the table delicately set for an outdoor dinner. The invitations were ready in a few days. On the paper, in elegant letters, it was written, "It is with great joy that we invite you to witness our union, by the lake, at our home." When they began to be sent out, we received emotional messages from family and friends. Some said they could already imagine the scene and couldn't wait to be there with us. That night, sitting on the sofa, Todd held one of the invitations, ran his fingers over the paper, and smiled. "Honey, there's no turning back now. We're really about to get married, and it's going to be in the most beautiful place in the world." I hugged him tightly, my heart racing, and replied, "In our place, just like we always dreamed." The big day arrived faster than we imagined. The house was quiet from early on, but outside, in front of the lake, everything was already taking shape. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, fresh flowers decorated the arch facing the water, and a light breeze made the petals sway gently. The guests began to arrive in the late afternoon, dressed in light colors, bringing smiles and warm hugs. The golden reflection of the sun on the lake made the setting even more special, as if nature had prepared to celebrate with us. I was wearing a light-colored suit, my heart racing, and Todd appeared at my side, equally elegant, his eyes shining with emotion. But what really made me hold back the tears was seeing my daughter, smiling among the guests, and his son, who looked proud, recording every detail on his cell phone. They were there, present, sharing with us the most important moment of our lives. When our eyes met, it was as if the whole world disappeared, leaving only the two of us, our children, and the lake as silent witnesses. The organizer gave a signal, and the ceremony began. The words were simple but full of truth. The officiant spoke about love, respect, and the courage to choose to be together every day. At the moment of exchanging rings, I took a deep breath, held Todd's hand firmly, looked into his eyes, and said with a trembling voice, "My love, since you came into my life, I have discovered a meaning I didn't know before. Today, in front of everyone we love, and in front of this lake that has held so many of our moments, I promise to be your safe haven. I promise to respect who you are, to take care of you when life is hard, to laugh with you when everything is light. I promise to hold your hand through every phase, every dream, and every fear. I promise to love you not only until the end of my life, but beyond time, because what I feel for you is eternal." Todd already had tears in his eyes when he began to speak. He pressed my hand against his chest and replied, his voice trembling but full of conviction. "I always asked God for someone who would understand me, who would be my friend, my lover, and my companion. And he brought me you. Before our friends, our family, and the open sky above us, I promise to be faithful to our love every day of my life. I promise never to let go of your hand, even when the road is difficult. I promise to respect you, admire you, and fall in love with you again every morning. And I promise that, as long as I live, I will do everything I can to make you happy by my side." Tears were already rolling down our faces when we placed the rings on each other's fingers. The respectful silence of the guests was soon broken by applause and emotional sighs. And then we kissed under the arch of flowers, with the lake reflecting our images and the promises we had just sealed. After the kiss, applause echoed across the lake, and we were soon embraced by the guests. My daughter was the first to run to me, hugging me tightly, her eyes brimming with tears. "Dad, I'm so happy for you," she said, and those words made me break down inside with emotion. Todd's son also approached, hugging his father and then embracing me as well, as if he wanted to seal not only the union of two men, but of two families. The tables were already set up outdoors, decorated with flowers and candles that reflected on the lake, creating an almost magical setting. The atmosphere was light, full of laughter, and soft music filled the space. The restaurant manager who had helped us with our engagement was also present, this time as a guest, and made a point of toasting with us. The glasses were raised once again, and everyone repeated in unison. To love. The dinner was marked by lively conversations, stories being recalled, and many declarations of affection. At one point, my daughter pulled Todd's son onto the improvised dance floor, and soon everyone was having fun, dancing under the stars. When the music slowed down, Todd pulled me to the center. We danced together, close together, while everyone around us looked at us with smiles on their faces. I whispered in his ear, "This is just the beginning of our life together." He smiled, squeezing my hand, and replied, "And I want to live every second of it by your side." Under the glow of the lights and the reflection of the lake, we celebrated not only a wedding, but the certainty that we had built something eternal, a love that was not only ours, but also united our families. The night passed lightly, lulled by music, laughter, and hugs. Friends and family took turns congratulating us, and Todd and I couldn't stop smiling. With every glance, every touch, it was as if we were reaffirming how unique that day was. My daughter and Todd's son had fun together, sometimes dancing, sometimes taking pictures with the guests, as if they were also experiencing their wedding. Seeing them happy and proud filled us even more with the certainty that we had made the right choice. Little by little, the party came to an end. One by one, the guests said their goodbyes, leaving wishes of happiness and promises to meet again soon. The manager, our surprise friend since the engagement, was the last to leave, and before leaving he hugged us tightly, saying, "You deserve all the happiness in the world." When we were finally alone, all that remained was the silence of the night, the lake reflecting the last lights, and a few forgotten glasses on the tables. I looked at Todd, and he looked at me, and we laughed softly, like two kids who had just fulfilled their biggest dreams. We entered the house hand in hand. In the kitchen, we nibbled on a piece of cake, laughing like teenagers, still dressed in our wedding clothes. The sweetness, mixed with laughter, seemed to sum up the lightness of that day. We slowly went up to the bedroom, and as soon as we closed the door behind us, the silence turned into long kisses, full of desire and tenderness. We gave ourselves to each other that night, celebrating not only our marriage, but the life we had decided to build together. We lay side by side, exchanging lazy kisses, when I leaned over and whispered in his ear, "Today I'm going to love you for the first time as my husband." He smiled slightly and replied softly, "We just can't make any noise. I don't want to wake the children who are sleeping in the next room." That made me smile. I always thought it was beautiful how he referred to my daughter and his son as children, even though they were already teenagers. It was an affectionate way of protecting them, of showing care. I loved that about him. I kissed his mouth hard, our tongues meeting in urgent desire. We gave ourselves completely to each other that night, with intensity and tenderness. It was our first moment of love after officially becoming husband and husband, and it seemed that every gesture had even more meaning. Time passed slowly, as if the world outside had stopped. Every touch, every glance, was a reminder of how long we had waited for this, and now it was real. We made love like never before, letting our bodies and hearts speak louder than any words. When we finally stopped, we remained embraced, sweaty and laughing softly. I looked into his eyes and whispered, "The first time as my husband." He smiled, moved, and replied, "And I want many more." We stayed like that for a few minutes, just feeling the warmth of each other's bodies. Then we took a shower together, letting the warm water fall on us like a caress, a mutual affection. It was as if that shower was also a way of sealing the night, not just cleaning our skin, but washing away any shadows from the past and making room for the new life we had chosen to live. We returned to the bedroom feeling lighter, lay down side by side, and he rested his head on my chest. I wrapped my arms around his waist, caressing his still damp hair. "Good night, my husband," he murmured, almost asleep. I kissed his hair and replied softly, "Good night, my love." And then we slept together, lulled by the silence of the house and the certainty that that night had marked the beginning of a new life together. The morning sun slowly crept through the cracks in the curtains, illuminating the room with a soft light. I woke up first and spent a few minutes just watching Todd sleep. His face serene, his lips parted, his hair messy, the simplest scene in the world, but one that seemed to carry all the beauty of my life. I slowly ran my hand over his arm until he stirred. He opened his eyes slowly, still sleepy, and when he saw me, he smiled with that lazy smile that always melted my heart. "Good morning, husband," he said, his voice hoarse from waking up. I smiled back, kissed his forehead, and replied, "Good morning, my love. Our first day as husband and wife." He laughed softly, snuggling closer to my chest, and remained silent for a few seconds, as if savoring the phrase. Then he lifted his face and looked at me tenderly. "It feels like a dream. As feels like a dream. Feels like a dream. As feels like a dream. It's real," I assured him, running my hand through his hair. "And it's just beginning." We got up slowly and went to the kitchen to make breakfast together. Between stolen kisses, laughter, and jokes, the house seemed to have gained new energy. It was as if everything around us had changed after that night, and, in a way, it had. As we set the table, he hugged me from behind and whispered in my ear, "If every day is like this, I'll never want anything else in life." I turned around, held his face in my hands, and replied with a long kiss, "And they will be, my love. I promise." As we set the table, still exchanging laughter and stolen kisses, we heard light footsteps in the hallway. My daughter appeared first, in her pajamas, her hair still messy, and right behind her came Todd's son, equally sleepy. They both stopped at the kitchen door, looking at us with shy smiles. "Good morning, parents," she said, in a playful tone that made me laugh. "Good morning," we replied together, almost in unison, and that made them burst out laughing. Todd opened his arms, and his son came over to hug him, squeezing him tight. I did the same with my daughter, who snuggled up to me for a moment before sitting down at the table. The atmosphere was light, natural, full of a complicity that didn't need many words. We all sat down together for breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and hot coffee filled the room, but what really filled the kitchen was the feeling of unity. We were officially a family. I looked at Todd, who returned my gaze with tenderness, and thought that nothing could be more perfect than seeing our children there, sharing the table with us on our first day of marriage. He smiled, raised his cup, and said, "Here's to our home." We all raised our coffee cups, and for a moment I felt that this simple gesture was worth more than any party. It was life beginning, real life, and we were together to live it. The morning passed quietly, lightly, full of smiles. We had breakfast together, laughed at simple things, and even took some photos to capture the moment. But after lunch, the time we knew would come arrived. My daughter and Todd's son had to return to their routines. The afternoon was progressing when we gathered in the living room to say goodbye. They had their backpacks ready, and even without saying anything, you could feel that this weekend had been special for them too. My daughter hugged me tightly, as if she didn't want to let go, and whispered in my ear, "Dad, I'm happy for you." Really. Todd's son, in turn, gave him a big hug and then greeted me warmly, almost as if he had officially accepted me too. After a few restrained tears and many kisses and promises that we would see each other again soon, we took them both to the car. We waved until they disappeared at the end of the street. The silence that returned to the house was different. It wasn't empty, but serene. I looked at Todd. He smiled slightly and intertwined his fingers with mine. "Now it's just the two of us, husband," he said, his voice full of tenderness. I smiled back, pulling him into a slow kiss, feeling that this was only the first chapter of our life together. When we returned inside, the silence seemed to embrace us. The absence of the children made the atmosphere peaceful, but not empty. It was as if the house was breathing with us. I looked at Todd and, without saying a word, he understood. Hand in hand, we walked to the lake, the same place where, hours earlier, we had said, "I do," in front of everyone. The afternoon sun gilded the water and made the leaves on the trees shine. The breeze was gentle, bringing that smell of nature that always calmed us. We lay side by side on the soft grass, looking at the sky reflected in the lake. We were silent for a while, just listening to the birds singing and the gentle movement of the water. I intertwined my fingers with his and smiled, feeling my heart warm. "I never thought it was possible to feel so peaceful," I murmured. Todd turned his face toward me, looking at me tenderly, and replied, "It's because now we have everything. We have each other. I brought my mouth close to his and kissed him slowly. A calm kiss, full of meaning. There, lying on the grass, the world seemed to have stopped. There was no rush, no noise, just the two of us and the certainty that we had chosen the right path. Little by little, the passion grew between us, and we gave ourselves to each other there, with respect, affection, and love. A moment that was ours alone, lived with intensity and care, without haste and without witnesses other than the lake and the sky. Afterward, we remained embraced, breathing the same calm, certain that this was more than a moment. It was the beginning of a whole life together. All this happened 5 years ago, but I remember it as if it were yesterday. Time has passed quickly, almost without notice. My daughter is already engaged, building her own life, and Todd's son has graduated from college and is now a civil engineer, and on top of everything else, he is becoming more and more handsome. We are immensely proud of him, and whenever he can, he comes to spend the weekends with us, bringing even more joy to the house. Todd, he is more handsome than ever. We started going to the gym together, because after all, age catches up with us, and we need to take care of ourselves. And I confess that seeing him more and more confident only increases the affection and admiration I feel. The most incredible thing is that, even after so many years, we are more in love than ever. No routine can cool what we feel. On the contrary, it seems that our chemistry has only grown over time. Just a brush of skin, a casual touch, and my heart races as if it were the first time. That flame has never gone out. It has become an essential part of our lives, spicing up our relationship and reminding us every day that love and desire can walk together forever. Sometimes we laugh about it, about how we still tease each other like two kids, even though we have so much history and responsibility behind us. But that's exactly where the magic lies, in the balance between maturity and desire, between the home we've built and the flame we've never let die. I look back and realize that time has been generous to us. It wasn't just fate that brought us here, but the courage to choose each other, to support each other, to not let go of each other's hands even when life seemed to want to test us. Today, I see my daughter building her own story, Todd's son becoming the man he always dreamed of being, and I feel immense pride not only in them, but also in us. We managed to create a home where love was always the foundation, and that overflowed to those around us. Todd continues to be my safe haven, my partner, and my best friend. Every line on his face, every mark of time, reminds me of the battles we've won and how far we've come together. And yet, when he looks at me that way, I feel the same butterflies in my stomach as before, as if everything were starting all over again. I've learned that true love isn't just made up of grand moments, but also the little things. Breakfast together, a touch in the middle of the night, silly laughter, comfortable silence. And in our case, the desire has always been there, not as a passing fire, but as a constant flame that warms the soul. If there is a definition of happiness, perhaps it is this: being with the one you love, building memories, overcoming challenges, taking care of each other. Knowing that, no matter how much time passes, we will still be two men in love, with young hearts and eyes full of the future. And when I think about tomorrow, I feel no fear. I feel gratitude, because I know that, whatever path lies ahead, I will be holding hands with him. And that is all I need. Time may pass, but by his side I have learned that true love does not age, it only becomes eternal. And so I end our story. Kisses and take care.